To talk more about this and the wider campus movement we are seeing, I want to welcome legal commentator Frédéric Bérard. He is on the law faculty at the University of Montreal and a partner at the law firm Gattuso Bouchard Mazzone. And Frédéric, appreciate you taking the time to once again speak to us. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Andrew.
So what is your response to this judge's partial injunction at the Université du Québec à Montréal, basically saying that the encampment that's sort of blocking entrances or windows and such is that it needs to come down?
Well, I think that was pretty predictable, right? Mm-hmm. Because freedom of speech is very important. It is protected by the Canadian Charter of Rights, but it has some limits. One of those limits is the security. And in that particular case, the court decided that your journalist just said it, there were some problems with windows that were blocked, with doors that were blocked as well. So it's not an injunction asking for the encampment to leave. It's just an injunction, a partial injunction saying, well, you can still protest if you like, but please do it properly.
So please do it properly. So I guess find somewhere else to do it so that you're not blocking exits and that kind of
Correct.
thing. All right. So
Correct.
Then we know that the University of Toronto's president said this morning that the university's lawyers are seeking an injunction against the encampment there, but they're still negotiating after that morning deadline passed. So how would the threat, do you think, of an injunction affect negotiations?
Well, it depends on where they are, because it's important, Andrew, to remember that each and every case is unique. You cannot take the situation of UQAM, you cannot take the situation of McGill and bring it to U of T. So it's a matter of evidence each and every time, depending on the security, depending on hatred speech situation, if that is the case. If not, I would say that U of T has probably no chance to win that injunction, and probably that the students and other protesters like professors know that, so I guess that there will be no influence on the negotiations.
So it's interesting you mentioned that, because the university has said that there have been examples of hate speech, 5 or 6 or so. So does that kind of reach the bar then, that the encampment has to come down? It is somewhat like McGill in that it's on the main campus, but it's on a lawn. I don't think it's really blocking entrances or anything like that. The university has said it's not providing other people with the right to use that area because there's some fencing there. But what do you make of all that?
Well, actually, freedom of speech is pretty hard to assess. Mm-hmm. It's very subjective. So is 5 or 6 hatred messages, which is depictable, by the way, obviously, but is that enough to shut down the whole encampment of many hundreds of people, I guess? Probably not. If it's not a trend, I would probably predict that the court will not ask for the shutdown of the encampment. But if this is a trend, obviously, that's the other way around. And this is one of the limits of the freedom of speech as we see it in Canada.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about the Charter, because how do the courts balance protesters' rights around freedom of speech and assembly and the university's property rights?
Well, that's pretty good question. Mm-hmm. You know what? University campus are not classic property, right? In the sense that I can go take a walk at McGill campus this afternoon. I can go take a walk at U of T campus tonight if I like. Why? Because it's open to public. It's not like my condo here, for instance, which is very, very private. And the other thing that we need to understand is that the freedom of speech is protected by the Canadian Charter of Rights, but the property rights are not, which means that in almost any case, freedom of speech should prevail over property rights, unless there's some of the limits we talked about, per se the security or the hatred speech.
All right, I want to ask you another aspect of U of T, which I think you probably find interesting. So there's a trespass notice issued by University of Toronto that also says that students might be suspended and expelled, that faculty may be subject to measures up to and including termination. What do you make of that threat by the university administrators?
There's an expression in English, you can confirm me that. This is called idle threat, right?
Okay.
And this is where we are right now, because legally speaking, it doesn't make sense at all. And I would say that it's very outrageous from U of T to use those threats to try to repress freedom of speech, unless obviously there is some, if there were some problem with security of hatred speech, that would be something else. But if this is not the case, you cannot suspend in any ways a student who just use his or her freedom of speech protected by the charter. And very frankly, with no regards of what we think about the situation in Gaza, I think that I feel very comfortable in a way seeing that some of our youth are protesting outside to get a world better. So I would be a bit of ashamed if I was U of T with those kind of threats.
Well, what do you make of that as somebody who, teach? I mean, have we seen anything like this where a prestigious Canadian university would make a threat like that to terminate professors?
That's the first time I hear that. And as you said, I mean, there are some professors that are protesters as well. So they're going to fire them? Why is that? Is freedom of speech still mean something in this country or not? If it's still the case, then leave those people alone, unless there's some problem with security or hatred speech.
Frédéric, always great to get your insight. Thank you very much.
Right back at you.
Legal commentator Frédéric Bérard in Montreal.